What's up guys, and welcome back to another eBay miniature rescue. Today is going to be pretty interesting because I started a video and I had all the intentions in the world to make it the best I could. But of course sometimes things go wrong, and in this case a lot of things went wrong. So enjoy the ride. I hope you learned something. I think I probably have by the end, and we'll see what happens. So this model is the Dark Reaper's X-Arch, so the Eldar, from 4th or 5th edition. And this is a model that I painted when I was probably 12 years old. So I thought, I got this other one, in the mail, and I thought, okay, let's do a whole thing, right? Let's make a video about this. We'll update it. It'll be cooler. It'll be better. So I thought, we'll get into that a little bit more, but, it's a pretty fun kind of thing to take an old model that I didn't necessarily want to strip and start over, because I don't believe that you should take your old models and strip them unless you're, purposely practicing and you're trying to get better and, paint something specific. If it's a model that you painted 20 years ago, just save it so you can see it in the future. So the major differences are that the original model that I had was pewter, and this is the fine cast version. So I'm just gonna drill out the bottom of the feet, and I'm gonna just build a quick base for it so that it's got something cool going on. I wanted to make this kind of the thing that I wanted when I was 12, with the colors and transitions and things like that I really had no idea how to do at the time. So I grabbed some Chaos bits off of an old Chaos Space Marine sprue and cut off some, they're like little spikes with heads on them, skulls. And the reason behind that is that I always looked at this model kind of like a Chaos model. It has that kind of aesthetic to it, and I really like that. So I put all of this stuff together on a base, and I started priming it with Vallejo black surface primer. And then I did a zenithal of white ink over the top just to start everything off so that we knew where all the values were supposed to be from top to bottom. At this point, I'm really debating on whether or not I want to take the color scheme that I had intended originally and just try and do a better job at it this time. And I kind of decided to use some of those colors, a lot of the reds and whites, that kind of thing, and change it up with some metallics, because at the time I only had, I'm pretty sure it was just gold. I don't even remember what name it was. It was some super old GW gold. And I mean, even the leather pouch on the old model is painted with gold instead of brown. I don't even think I owned a brown at the time. So we're going to start off with a pretty thin coat of gory red, and that's just going to give us our nice red base coat and maintain a lot of that zenithal highlighting. So a lot of those shadows are still going to be pretty dark, and it's going to give us a nice instantaneous shadow where we don't have to do too much extra work. Coming in with Mephiston red, still pretty thin down through the airbrush. This is going to reinforce a lot of that red. It's a little bit brighter, so we're going to give a little more highlight, and we're going to try and glaze it in really lightly into the shadows just to enhance the red that's there. So it's going to be really light on any of the shadows, so it's just a little more red than black red. Then we're going to add some moon yellow into the pot to get kind of a nice bright orange. And we're going to try and push these highlights pretty far so that when we come back with a wash, you can still see a lot of that detail and highlighting. Then with white ink through a different airbrush, I'm actually using the Sotar 2020. I'm going to get in really tight and try and hit a lot of the bone area. I should mention that normally I've been using the Sotar 2020 quite a bit, and I just bought a Badger Patriot 105, and I'm really enjoying that airbrush a lot. The review for the 2020 is either out or will be out within the next few days. So, subscribe if you want to know a little bit more about this particular airbrush and my thoughts. It was about at this point I was feeling pretty good about where this model was headed. I like the transitions, I like the highlighting, and things were going well. So we're going to add some Vallejo metal color, which I know a lot of people have been trying to get me to use. So this is kind of the first major outing for them, and man, they're so good. I don't even know why I've ever been using any other kind of metallic. I mean, if you haven't tried this metal color, you need to try it. All of these bottles, I got 6 of them in total, a good range, some gold, copper, and a bunch of different silvers, came courtesy of Matrix Cards and Games out of Redding, California. So thanks, Matrix Cards and Games, for sending these. They are fantastic, and I will be using them as much as possible. So again, with the metallics on here, I'm still feeling pretty good about this. It's got some nice contrast, especially with that dark metal. And now we're going to try and up that bone a little bit. So with Corax White, I'm just going to layer over all of the bones, and we're going to try and set this up for some contrast and, make it a little more bone looking. Trying to keep busy while that Corax White dries, we're going to lay down some Rhinox hide on anything that's leather. And on this model, it's pretty much, he's got a little bit of pants showing. You can kind of see some wrinkles in what I'm assuming are leather pants. And then there's a little leather pouch on the side. I'm not sure what this leather pouch is supposed to hold. Seems like he can't really reach it. I don't know. It's a weird choice for a model, I think. But, it's brown. And then we're going to come in with some Kislev flesh. And I'm going to mix this on a wet palette into that brown just a little bit to kind of get a little bit lighter. And then mix it in again to get a little bit lighter until we reach pretty much pure Kislev flesh. And that's going to be our highest point for our highlights. Using Mephiston Red and a little bit of Fire Dragon Bright, I'm just going to try and highlight a lot of that red that we shot with the airbrush, especially on the gun, because it's kind of the focal point in the front of the body. So anywhere that, from that top-down zenithal that we did, that light was hitting the most, I'm going to try and push those reds and oranges just to give it a little more dynamic look and make it a little more interesting. With the contrast paint Skeleton Horde, I'm going to go over all of the bone. And this paint's really good as far as contrast paints go. It's one of the better ones, in my opinion. It really gives a nice bone look. A lot better than Seraphim Sepia does, is just a regular wash, because it settles in a little bit more natural way, or at least it appears that way. So I'm just going to go over everything, and we're going to get a nice bone color so we can come back and highlight to kind of punch that up a little bit in a little while. Alright, so I decided that I wanted to take the shoulder pads and, punch it up with some nice blue in those recesses. And up to this point, I haven't done anything to the model, so I'm laying down this contrast paint, and it starts tearing off that white ink, and even through the paint. I should have varnished this, but I didn't. So here's the first major issue with this model. Even if the blue was a bad choice, could have been, might have been cool, it pretty much ruined the shoulder pad. Yep. Yeah, that happened. So with that, I'm just going to take some Corax White and pretty much cover the shoulder pads, as light as I can, because it pretty much ate through down to the primer. So there's not a lot of detail that will be obscured by this. It's not like I'm putting extra layers on, because that paint was gone. So I did what I could to clean that off, and I put the Corax White over it to, rethink a little bit. And since I had the Corax White, and it was pretty thin by this point, it was, on the wet palette, it was pretty watered down, I decided to go over and just kind of lightly layer over some of this bone to start to push that value up a little bit. Coming in with Screaming Skull, we're going to do our final highlights on the bone. And even though that Corax White is generally brighter than the Screaming Skull, which has a little more yellow in it, because it was such a light layer to begin with, it just kind of laid down a little bit of a base coat for us to work off of. So the Screaming Skull is going to go down pretty nicely, and it's going to give that really nice old bone look to all of this, bone. So I decided I wanted to start incorporating a little more purple into this model, because I like that mixture of purple and red and orange, that kind of thing. They all play really well off of each other. So on this kind of hair head plume on the backpack, we're going to do a 2-to-1 mixture of contrast medium and Shyish purple to cover that up. Now with some Vallejo Metal Color Burnt Iron, I'm going to do the shoulder pads. And this color, again, being this metal color, fantastically covers pretty much any color. Normally, I would want to do a black undercoat, and it might look even better with that. But this stuff goes over everything so well, or at least so far in my experience. The idea behind this is I wanted a dark color for the shoulder pads that kind of matched the original model. I was going back and forth after that first major mishap, and I decided to kind of mimic that. Using a 1-to-1 mixture of Army Painter Dark Tone and Army Painter Quick Shade Wash Mixing Medium, I'm going to wash this model, and you're going to watch this paint come right off, because of course, I didn't bother to change anything last time, and I don't know why. And wouldn't you know, it happened again. You'd think I would have learned the first time around and just gloss coated the whole thing and locked everything in. But take it from me, from my mistake. If you do a really light, nice base coating with an airbrush, consider locking it in with some kind of varnish. Gloss coating is the best way to go, because it's the hardest and it's the most durable. So you're gonna lock everything in, and you're not gonna have to worry about it, and your paint isn't gonna come off like mine. So this is how it should go. I repainted it, gloss varnished it, and using Druchii Violet and Nuln Oil in a 1-to-1 mixture, this is how wash should go on. And because that surface tension has been lowered by that gloss varnish, the wash is going right into the recesses. It's not really mixing with our colors or ruining anything, so our highlights are still pretty preserved, and it looks a lot better this way. And it's like, I know that's how this should work, and for some reason, I don't know if I was just, lacking caffeine or had too much caffeine or what the deal was, but sometimes mistakes happen, even if you've been painting for a long time. You just roll with it. It was pretty much at this point that the original intention behind fixing this model and doing it in a different way was kind of lost. So I wanted to do something kind of crazy. So I'm taking this white ink, shooting it through the 2020, and I'm getting really close in on a lot of the gemstones and anything where, power could be emanating from, or, anything like that. And we're going to do some contrasting color to really just punch this whole model up. So red contrasts really well with green, and I wanted this power to be emanating from a lot of different places on the model. So with a few different really light coats through an airbrush of Waywatcher green, I'm going to hit all of those white ink areas and bring out that kind of glowing look. So the plan was to improve on my original paint scheme. And in a lot of ways, I accomplished that. And I think what I want to do is continue with this and try and find other older Eldar miniatures to update and build a new army around that even my 12-year-old self would be extremely excited to see on the table. So I want to keep this as kind of an ongoing mini-series and in a series of challenges to you, the audience, and to my fellow YouTubers, and I will be sending emails out. You know who you are. I want to challenge everyone to find their first miniature and either buy, or if you have another, however you can get it, try and paint that now so that you can see how far you've actually come. Even if you just started 2 months ago, pick up that miniature and try again. I bet you'll be surprised by the result. So obviously that was a pretty interesting way to go, and not at all where I intended on finishing in the least. But, you know, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, and, you know, it could have been a lot worse. This model will be going up on eBay, so if you'd like to own this interesting piece of EMR history, if you will, then the links are in the description. I'd also like to mention that I've got new t-shirts, which is pretty cool. This pretty awesome orc figure going on. I enjoy it a lot. It represents a lot of, you know, what I like about rescuing miniatures, taking the garbage and turning it into something even better, hopefully. In this case, maybe, maybe not. I don't know. You'll have to let me know in the comments what you think about this particular miniature. I'm 50-50 on it, still. Thank you again for joining me on another eBay miniature rescue. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Check out the merch shelf down below for new t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. I've been Casey, and I will see you in the next video.